Welcome to the Improve81 podcast, a discussion of how the Virginia Department of Transportation is working to enhance safety and traffic flow on this critical highway through Western Virginia. The Interstate 81 Corridor Improvement Program, also known as the CIP or Improve81, provides funding and guidance for roughly $3 billion worth of construction projects and operational enhancements. I'm Ken Slack, Communications Coordinator for Improve81. And joining me today are Dave Covington, VDOT's I-81 Program Delivery Director, and Robbie Good, VDOT Staunton District Construction Engineer. Now, in all of our previous podcasts, we've talked pretty strictly about CIP projects, only those that are in the program, but there are dozens of other kinds of construction and maintenance projects along I-81 as well. So, Dave, let's start here. What are some of the different ways that VDOT manages and funds improvements along this corridor?
Well, I believe that by now most people have some general knowledge about how most capital improvement projects are identified and funded. That process is called Smart Scale. The Smart Scale process was developed to ensure that the limited tax dollars available for the vast transportation improvement needs are allocated in a systematic way. The Smart Scale process evaluates individual projects by focusing on metrics such as improving safety, reducing congestion, increasing accessibility, contribution to economic development, and effects on the environment. That may sound familiar when compared to the I-81 Corridor Improvement Program projects because the I-81 CIP used very similar criteria to identify the needs along the I-81 corridor. Another funding source is called SGR, or State of Good Repair. SGR by law is focused on improving deficient pavement conditions and improving structurally deficient bridges. And I must state that structurally deficient doesn't mean that a bridge is unsafe. It means that it needs maintenance work to ensure that it doesn't deteriorate to an unsafe condition. Based on that definition, these projects are maintenance related rather than new construction for added capacity.
So we're talking about things like repaving jobs and bridge rehabilitation, that sort of thing.
That's correct. And kind of by contrast, as I mentioned previously, the I-81 Corridor Improvement Plan utilizes very similar scoring criteria to that of the Smart Scale process to identify the needs. The real difference is that Smart Scale is a statewide funding program where the I-81 Corridor Improvement Program focuses solely on the I-81 corridor. Additionally, the I-81 Corridor Improvement Program has unique funding mechanism. The funds to build the I-81 Corridor Improvement Program projects come from regional fuel tax increase along the corridor and Interstate Operations and Enhancement Program.
So there's a lot of different things going on here with the CIP, Smart Scale projects, SGR, State of Good Repair. I always feel like I have to say that one out because it's a SGR. But so new construction as well as maintenance of our existing infrastructure. And when I think about this, Robbie, your district covers 150 miles of I-81, not to mention all the other parts of your district that aren't even on the corridor, but just the interstate alone, you must have a whole lot going on along this corridor that uses Smart Scale funding, CIP, and all these different sources of funding.
We do, Ken. We've got a lot of projects going on right now, and we've got a lot of projects coming up in the near future. From our perspective, whether it's SGR, Smart Scale, or the I-81 CIP, we're looking at them all cohesively throughout the Staunton district. We're not administering any of those projects differently based on the funding source. My head works north to south in Staunton district. So the one that we've got coming up here in the near future, we're going to be doing some acceleration lane extension on northbound 81 and a deacceleration lane extension on southbound 81 up at exit 317 in Frederick County. And then kind of moving on down south for folks traveling 81. The next one they would run into would be the I-81 work there at exit 300. That project is ongoing right now, and what we're doing there is 66 west traffic is merging on the I-81 southbound. We're extending that acceleration lane and reconstructing that bridge over Water Plant Road, widening that bridge to accommodate that acceleration lane in conjunction with that project, and that one's active right now.
That's a really busy interchange, and you have that rather unusual left-hand merge lane for folks that are coming down 81 and they see traffic coming in from 66 on their left.
Yeah, it's unusual for the 81 traffic and the 66 traffic because when you're coming south on 81, you've got the traffic coming into your left, but then when you're on 66, you also have the 81 traffic to your right, and it's not a very easy maneuver to look over your right shoulder to merge in with that traffic. So this is a project that I think will really enhance that interchange.
And then moving just slightly further south, we've got another widening project there under the CIP, correct?
Yeah, there's another project later on in 2024. The project actually picks up right at the end of the current project there at exit 300 on southbound I-81, and it will add an additional lane from that point heading south down to 295.4. And that project will also include widening the bridge over the CSX Railroad and the replacement of a bridge over Cedar Creek. That project has an estimated value of construction of about $111 million.
And continuing to move further south in the Harrisonburg area, a whole lot of activity there.
You've got an active project right now that's occurring there at I-81 in Harrisonburg at Route 33 at the exit 247 interchange. We've got the project that's currently replacing 4 bridges, 2 over 81 and 2 over the railroad. We're basically replacing those 4 bridges with 2 bridges. It'll be 1 large bridge over 81, 1 large bridge over the railroad. When you drive through there now, you'll see that project is ongoing. That one has an estimated contract value of around $43.3 million. It began in the fall of 2022, and it's expected for completion in the summer of 26.
By the time that is in its final stages, we're going to be moving on to a CIP project right there.
We do. We have a very large CIP project planned there through the city of Harrisonburg, running from exit 243 to exit 247. That CIP project will include adding an additional lane northbound and southbound, beginning there at exit 243 near Pleasant Valley Road to 1 mile north of exit 247. So that widening will encompass the same area as the active Route 33 project along 81. Now that project has a total estimated cost around $280 million, and we're looking for that one to start sometime in late 2025.
You mentioned we have some large-scale projects right next to other projects like Smart Scale and CIP right next to each other, and sometimes even overlapping, like we have there in the Harrisonburg area. Any other examples along the corridor where we're going to have contractors potentially sharing the same space?
We recently had a scenario like that up around Harrisonburg. We reconstructed a bridge over 81 just north of the Route 33 project there at Route 720 Smithland Road. And that project was in close proximity to that active project at Route 33, and those work zones sort of commingled a little bit. So we had to evaluate that area and make sure that we were signing it accordingly to maintain expectations for the motorist coming through both those work zones.
Yeah, I remember driving through those work zones, and they were maybe half a mile apart, it seems. And so rather than, okay, we're going to lower the speed limit, go through this work zone, then you go back up to normal interstate speed and then back down again, it was sort of treated as a single work zone, it seemed.
It was. We reduced the speed limit beginning there on the Route 33 project all the way heading north up through the Route 720 bridge reconstruction project.
And Dave, I know that we've even had some projects in the I-81 CIP that have been in the same contract as those that have different funding sources like Smart Scale, all underneath that same construction contract. Do you have any examples that you can share on that?
Sure. I'll begin by stating that the teams are developing and delivering the I-81 CIP projects and Smart Scale projects are focused on efficiencies and opportunities to deliver projects faster and cheaper. One of the methods of doing that is project bundling. Project bundling is grouping projects in very close proximity to each other to deliver under a single construction contract. There are many advantages to bundling projects in addition to cost savings. One of the most important is eliminating multiple contractors working in the same area, which creates the need for very close coordination to ensure that work zones and maintenance of traffic do not conflict. We have identified several opportunities for bundling I-81 CIP projects and Smart Scale projects. One example is in the Whiteville area at the intersection of Interstate 81 and Interstate 77. In this area, we are bundling 2 I-81 corridor improvement projects with 1 Smart Scale project. We recognized an opportunity to reduce the overall cost since one project needed a lot of fill material, or basically soil, rock, that sort of material. And the other project has a lot of excess material. That material can now go directly to the other project. So conversely, the project that needed the material nearly gets it for free. So this reduces the cost, expedites delivery, and removes a lot of the dump truck trips from the road. Another example where this was done is at Exit 205 in Rafine. The I-81 Corridor Improvement Program included two projects, the northbound entrance ramp extension and the southbound entrance ramp extension. There was also a smart scale project on the same timeline to make needed improvements on Route 606, which is Rafine Road. We decided to bundle these projects to eliminate conflicts between contractors and reduce the overall cost of the projects. These projects were successfully delivered in 2022.
Now, of course, if you're driving on Interstate 81, you might not care where a project gets its funding. You just want to know that you're going to have a safe and smooth trip, even during construction. So, Robbie, I know that you've got some examples. You mentioned one at Smithland Road and the nearby Exit 247 there at Harrisonburg, but also an example in the Staunton area where we try to work to minimize conflicts between those work zones.
We do. We've got two active projects near Staunton. The one that Dave just recently referred to is the design build project between mile marker 221 and 225. That is a standalone project that we're delivering through design build, and we have a contractor working in that area. Just immediately to the south of that is another CIP project where we're building an auxiliary lane from I-81 southbound from 64 down to 262 there at the Woodrow Wilson Parkway. And in order to be able to add that auxiliary lane, we had to adjust the bridge there at Barterbrook Road, so we had to reconstruct that bridge. And when you're driving through there now, you can see where we've taken down the old bridge, and the contractor's in the process of reconstructing the new bridge at that location. So they are two separate projects back to back. And hopefully when you drive through there, you can't tell that they are separate projects, that the work zones from going to one and the other are seamless, because we really evaluate how the motorists are going through these areas, and we're trying to maintain consistency, we're trying to maintain expectations, and we're trying to evaluate the speed limits through this entire area to make sure that it's safe for the commuters and the motorists as well as the workers on the project.
Ken, I think that what Robbie just described is a really good example of where we have, projects that are in close proximity to each other that influence each other. And, part of this has to be handled through our transportation management plan development, but it really comes down to coordination and communication. And I think in this scenario, we did evaluate, would it be beneficial to include the auxiliary lane project just south of the I-64 interchange with the overall bigger contract to deliver the widening between exit 221 and exit 225. And ultimately, we looked at the nature of the two projects, especially the Barterbrook Road project, and that is a rather small project. I mean, the vast majority of that project is really the replacement of the Barterbrook Road bridge, not really the auxiliary lane. And compare the timeline of that to the timeline of the widening project just to the north, and we didn't see advantage there. Where in other areas, for instance, in Rafine and Wytheville, like I talked about earlier, we were able to really see the financial benefit and the benefit to the motorists of bundling those projects together. So we chose in the Staunton area to keep those projects separate. And as of right now, where we're at with those projects, I think that was the right decision.
Well, and those decisions take place up and down the corridor. You mentioned Staunton area, Harrisonburg area, Wytheville area, and then we have multiple projects from Troutville all the way down to Christiansburg exit in the Salem district, where we look at the specific schedules and the nature of those projects and the traffic needs along that corridor, and make those decisions about how we handle those projects, whether it's design build, design bid build. Do we bundle this or do we not bundle that? So I'm really appreciate the two of you joining us to really explain some of those decisions that go into that.
We talked about the Route 33 bridge replacement project, and we talked about the Harrisonburg widening project. And I think this also highlights an example of where we've changed course based on the facts that we've learned through the development of these projects. When we looked at the schedules of the Route 33 bridge replacement projects, which is within the future work zone of the Harrisonburg widening, the Harrisonburg widening project was originally envisioned as a design build project. So design build usually means expedited delivery, so we get to construction faster. The Staunton widening project was originally envisioned as a design bid build, where we complete the design, we put it out for advertisement for contractors to bid on. When we factored in the influence of the bridge replacement projects on Route 33, we revisited that decision and decided that it would be better to deliver the Staunton widening as a design build so we get to construction faster, and the Harrisonburg widening project as a design bid build that takes longer to get to construction. That enables the Route 33 bridge replacement project to get pretty close to completion before we really start major construction activity through the Harrisonburg area. So what that does is it helps to alleviate the issues for the traveling public. It also helps us to manage our contracts better because we don't have two contractors working in the same area competing for, space and resources. So that was a strategic decision that was made based on the timing of projects that quite honestly otherwise had nothing to do with the I-81 Corridor Improvement Program.
Dave Covington, I-81 Program Delivery Director, and Robbie Good, VDOT Staunton District Construction Engineer. Thank you both for spending some time with us today to share your thoughts about how VDOT manages the variety of projects along the I-81 corridor, whether they're funded by the CIP or other funding sources. And we also want to thank the listeners of this Improve81 podcast. VDOT Al has dozens of podcasts and videos that help show and tell what's happening on the I-81 corridor. And just a quick plug, one of those, you heard Dave talking a short time ago about the transportation management plan, and we actually have a podcast that's fully devoted to that. So if you want to find out more about how we try to minimize these conflicts between work zones, that's a great place to go, is that podcast. So check out the videos, podcasts, quarterly newsletters, an interactive map, and a whole lot more resources at improve81.org. And as always, we wish you safe travels.